There once was a country that was untate a country, but then it became a country, and now it is a country. The country is Guinea Bissau, which despite being its own country has a lot of the same problems that plague many of the countries around it. It has poverty, ethnic tensions, and a history of coups. So how did this country come to be? Before we get into it, I'd like to make a special announcement. Before that though, let's talk about Guinea Bissau. Guinea Bissau is located in West Africa and is one of the poorest countries in the world with a GDP per capita of just $531. Its economy is based around agriculture and fishing. However, most of its land is covered by the tropical rainforest, which makes infrastructure difficult to develop. This isolationist terrain also made it difficult for the people to unite and form a nation-state until very recently. The earliest inhabitants of the region were the Mandinka and Wolof people who lived in the west of the country around the rivers. Further inland lived the Susu and the Papal. These groups all spoke different languages and were largely animistic in their religions, although Islam started to spread from the north. But they were united in their opposition to the Portuguese who had started exploring and conquering the area since the 1400s. The Portuguese would enslave many of the locals and force them to work in the fields. But despite their best efforts, the Portuguese never really took control of the interior of what is modern-day Guinea-Bissau. They only really controlled the coastal regions where they established a few small settlements. In the 1800s, the Portuguese would start to abolish slavery, and this led to the creation of a small elite class of freed slaves who would eventually push for independence from Portugal. However, World War II would delay this, as Portugal joined the Allies and granted some rights to the African colonies to encourage the locals to fight for them. After the war, the Portuguese attempted to take back control of their colonies, which led to a revolt in 1956. This revolt would be brutally crushed and would actually lead to Portugal changing their colonial policy to a more aggressive assimilationist one. This meant that the native Africans were given Portuguese names and were forced to convert to Christianity and speak Portuguese. Although some Africans converted willingly, many still held on to their native religions and languages. After years of fighting between the Portuguese and the native Africans, the Portuguese would finally grant Guinea-Bissau independence on September 10, 1975. However, there was a problem. No one really knew how to govern the country. The new government was led by the PAIGC, or the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde. And while they had military experience, they didn't really have any experience governing a country. Also, because the Portuguese left so quickly, there wasn't much infrastructure. There was no roads, no hospitals, no schools, basically nothing. This led to the country descending into chaos and poverty. To make matters worse, Guinea-Bissau shares a border with Senegal, and while they are friendly today, at the time, Senegal was not recognizing Guinea-Bissau's independence and claimed a large chunk of its western territory. Guinea-Bissau would put up a resistance against Senegal, and they would actually gain the support of Indonesia and Malaysia, who provided military aid. Eventually, Senegal would agree to a ceasefire, and in 1981, the United Nations would mediate a peace deal between the two countries. After this, Guinea-Bissau would become a one-party state under the PAIGC and would see several coups, until 1999 when a military coup overthrew the government and installed a junta. This junta would rule until 2005 when democratic elections were held. Since then, the country has seen a rise in Islamic fundamentalism and ethnic tensions. So that's the history of Guinea-Bissau, the country that isn't poor because it's cursed. It's poor because it was a Portuguese colony. Thanks for watching. If you want more fun geography facts, stay tuned.